Good evening. Welcome to This Week in Review. Tonight's stories include...
Even though that we didn't get a lot of questions put in.
In studio today, I have Karen Buckland, president of the NAPE local for the area. These stories and more coming up in just a moment. Please stay tuned.
What is 56 Spark Street?
Is that a teenage show?
USC Canada, you know, third world development.
I remember when I was a kid growing up, they used to have those ads on TV with that Lotta Hitch.
I am Lotta Hitchmanova, Executive Director of the Unitarian Service Committee.
Times have changed, but the message is still the same: concern and caring. I'm Bruce Coburn for USC Canada, 56 Spark Street, Ottawa.
Topping the scene tonight is the fight to save the Calder Healthcare Centre and the future of healthcare as we know it here in Burgeo. In December, Hospital Board member Mr. Doug Kendall announced to BBS that the Western Hospital Board had a proposal in that would include closing the Calder Healthcare Centre here in Burgeo. Workers at the Calder Healthcare Centre got together at the conference room for a staff meeting on Wednesday regarding the future of the facility here in Burgeo. Speaking with me in the studio today, I have Karen Buckland, president of the NAPE local for the area, Daphne Cooper, local president of the Nurses Union, and Town Mayor Blaine Marks. Welcome to our studio. Karen, I understand that you have seen a copy of this proposal from the Western Board regarding Burgeo?
Yes, I have.
I understand that you're going to just briefly fill us in on the areas of the proposal that pertain to Burgeo?
Right. Okay. As most people are aware, there was a proposal sent to government by the Western Healthcare Institutions Board to reduce our hospital to a day clinic only. I was able to obtain a copy of this proposal, which I felt the main points should be made known to the public. This proposal is the second one on their list of cost-cutting measures. Their first statement: the acute care beds in Burgeo are very scarcely used and could be better used as long-term care beds. This would only be practical if there was a need, which appears unlikely. My comment: at the present time, the 16 chronic care beds are full, and we have 4 applications on file, waiting placement in the chronic care unit. We are unable to place those applicants in our acute care bids because we have been unable to obtain permission from the board, even though they agree it would be more practical. Their next statement: if this proposal is accepted by government, the hospital would be reduced to a day clinic only, with lab and x-ray services 5 days a week, during clinic hours only. After clinic hours and weekends, if you need medical attention, you would have to call the doctor at home. In the event of a situation requiring admission of a patient, as a result of the road being blocked, laid-off staff would be recalled for that occasion, and laid off again as soon as the patient could be transferred to an appropriate acute care facility. In the last few years, there has not been any prolonged periods of isolation greater than 2 days, and often not even that much delay. My comment: with the job situation in Burgeo at present time, most nursing staff will be leaving to seek work in other places. For those that do remain, if they don't get the number of hours required in a few years to keep their registration, they will not be qualified to work anyway. Their statement: the other alternative we would propose would be to convert all the beds in the facility to a long-term care, using the observation beds as holding beds for acute care patients if necessary. However, as indicated earlier, there may be difficulty in finding the appropriate residents for admission from the decreasing population of the Burgeo area. My comment: as I said earlier, the chronic care unit is full, and there are applications on file waiting for a bed. The board failed to indicate what would happen to the residents already living at this center. We can only assume that they will be sent somewhere in the western region, wherever a bid is available without a choice in the matter. There are over 40 medically discharged patients in the Western Memorial that are taking up acute care bids and could easily come to our chronic care facility. The board, however, are unwilling to take away their choice and send them to Burgeo and make our hospital more viable. Number 6 proposal on this document states they cannot close the hospital in Port-au-Basque because they are 2.5 hours away from the next hospital, with a road that is closed often. My comment: if you were not familiar with this region, you could conclude that Port-au-Basque was more isolated than Burgeo. Given that Port-au-Basque is linked to Corner Brook by the Trans-Canada Highway, and usually only closed for a few hours at a time, as compared to Burgeo Road, which has been closed for days at a time, and take as long as 5 hours to reach Corner Brook when it is open. In addition, only one of the communities served by Port-au-Basque is not accessible by road. And of course all the communities Burgeo serves, besides itself, have to travel by boat. Those are the highlights which I think have the most influence in the board's decision to close our hospital. We are not just concerned about our jobs, but of course that is an issue. We are more concerned about the health of the 5 communities involved. Once our plant is open, we'll need the hospital more than ever. In the past, the final decision was made before we could do anything about it. This time, we have the opportunity to influence the government in our favor. Now is the time to band together as a united group and make our voices heard. You may not need the hospital services today, but what about tomorrow?
Okay, Karen, there's some pretty strong accusations there that one could believe, I guess, if they didn't know this area. Can you clarify for us the difference between acute care, chronic care, respite care, and medically discharged?
Well, an acute care patient is a person that's admitted to hospital for a medical reason for a short duration, say 3 to 4 days, and when they're well enough, they're discharged home again. A chronic care patient or resident is a person that's admitted to a long-term care facility when their families are unable to care for them at home any longer. Respite care is when a person is admitted for up to 4 weeks in a year to basically help their families out and give them a break. Medically discharged. This is a person who originally is admitted for acute care, but when their problem becomes resolved or under control, their families feel that they can't cope with them at home, so they leave them in the hospital and they occupy an acute care bed until a chronic care bed becomes available.
Okay, how much money is government proposing to cut from the Calder Healthcare Centre budget?
Well, there's presently a proposal gone into government by the Western Healthcare Institutions Board, as Karen said, and they propose to cut our present budget of $2.2 million by $1.6 million. This would leave us with an annual budget of $600,000 to basically run a day clinic.
So what would happen in the event of an emergency after the day clinic is closed?
Well, from 5 p.m. until 9 a.m. the next morning, or like say for weekends on Friday after 5 p.m. until 9 a.m. Monday morning, if there was an emergency, you would have to call the doctor at home yourself. And also during these after hours, there would be no x-ray or lab facilities available. And also, like, there would be no one at the hospital to, say, do daily dressing changes on the weekends or blood pressure checks or glucometer checks.
Okay, so if the Calder Healthcare Centre were to close, had they specified a length of time that it would be closed for? Do you know when it would reopen?
No, well, we feel that if government goes ahead with this proposal and closes the Calder Healthcare Centre, that you'll most likely you'll never see it open again.
What would happen to the residents that are currently living in the facility?
Well, currently in the facility we have 16 residents, and as best we know, they would have to be sent to facilities across the island that have chronic care beds available, unless of course the families chose to take them home as another alternative. But in most cases, these people, due to physical condition, it would just be impossible, and that's why they were sent to the Calder Health Care Center in the first place.
So they could be as close as Stephenville or as far away as St. John's.
Exactly.
Okay. How many members make up the hospital board?
Presently, there are 17 members on the board and 1 vacancy, and 8 of these members are from the immediate Corner Brook area.
Okay. Mayor Marks, the 1 vacancy has resulted from Town Manager Mr. Kendall resigning from the board following his announcement of about this proposal. Was Mr. Kendall asked to resign, or did he resign on his own?
He wasn't asked to resign. After he attended that meeting and saw what was happening, he totally disagreed with it, but of course he was a voice in the wilderness. He was one in 17 or 18. And he brought it back to the town, and due to I guess personal reasons, he felt it was to his best, in his best interest to resign from the board. It's unfortunate that he did, because right now we've got no representative on the board, and in order to have a representative on the board, it's got to be an appointment by the minister under Section 8 of the Hospital Act. So if there's anyone interested in assuming that position, I would suggest that they get in contact with council, and we can submit the names to the minister so that the appointment can be made as soon as possible.
So would this replacement have to come from Burgeo?
There's 1 position on the board for the Burgeo area. Yeah. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be from Burgeo, it could be from Ramula.
Okay,
but it's for the Burgeo area, there's 1 representative.
Okay, but now what happens if no one applies for this position? Can they take it and fill it from Corner Brook or wherever they like?
Well, if no one fills the position, I've heard rumor that they're looking at downsizing the board anyway, where they've got 18 members. They're looking at probably downsizing it to 12. So if that happened, then maybe there wouldn't be a position there for Burgeo anyway. We may be represented by someone in Corner Brook or Stephenville.
Okay, you've seen the full proposal, I understand. You've received a copy of the full proposal. Are they proposing to close any other facilities completely besides Burgeo?
Well, they were asked by government to cut their budget by 9%, which translated into $7.3 million for 1996. They went back to government stating that they couldn't come up with the 7.3 million, but they identified 4.8 million in the board. Of that 4.8 million, 1.6 was directly from Burgeo. 1.4 million they're planning on cutting at Bond Bay as well. So 3 million out of the 4.8 identified is from 2 communities. Now, in Dr. Watts' opening statement in the letter to the Deputy Minister, he stated that all cuts, if any changes in the province, it should be done on an equitable basis. By saying that, I would assume that he would also like to do it on an equitable basis in the region. But it's not very equitable, I don't think, that when you see 1.6 million coming from Burgeo, that's covering Grand Brit to Francois, with a population of about 4,500, and in Corner Brook he's proposing 200,000, 1/8 the amount that we're going to lose in Burgeo.
Okay, what has been done thus far to support keeping the Calder Healthcare Centre open?
Well, as soon as I heard about the proposal, of course I got in contact with Mr. Gilbert, the MHA, and I have to say that Mr. Gilbert is in total support of the town and keeping the hospital open. He got onto it right away. We sent letters to the Minister of Health, to the Premier, to Roger Simmons, and to Mr. Gilbert. We've also requested a meeting with Dr. Watts and the hospital board to try to determine where they're coming from, because we had a meeting with the hospital board in November here in Burgeo. And we were told at that time that we had nothing to worry about. The Burgeo Hospital was, right on track. Through the restructuring under the new board, there may be a reduction of 1 to 1.5 positions. Other than that, he said everything was, right on for shift rotation and whatever. So there would be no reductions. Less than a month later, we hear about a proposal that he's going to close the place down. So we'd like to have a meeting with Dr. Watts and the board just to see where they're coming from, because it's just ludicrous what they're proposing.
So have any of you had any contact with Dr. Watts since this proposal?
Not directly with Dr. Watts. I was talking to his secretary, who called to say that they had received our letter to try to get the meeting set up. She informed me that Dr. Watts is out of the country until January the 26th. So until that time, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
Okay, if this proposal is approved, when would it come into effect?
It would come into effect on April 1st. It's for the 1996 fiscal year, which starts on April 1st.
So really that doesn't leave a lot of time, and even less from the time that Dr. Watts actually gets back.
That's right.
At his position.
But from talking to Mr. Gilbert, and I've talked to at least one other MHA. I talked with Bill Ramsey, who's the MHA for La Poile. He doesn't agree with it. He doesn't think that the government would even look at it, because basically when you look at the overall proposal, it's not just going to affect Burgeo, because what they're saying in the proposal is if this happens to Burgeo, then it should happen across the province, which means he's outlined, I think, 8 or 9 other hospitals. I know Buckins, Twillingate, Fogle, Bell Highland, Churchill Falls, Brookville, are some of the ones I can think of right now. He's suggesting that if they can downsize Burgeo like this, the other boards can downsize those other hospitals. So basically what his proposal was saying, that if government implements this, they're saying they're going to wipe all the medical services out of rural Newfoundland. And of course I personally think if government did accept that, it would be a downfall of the government, because people just won't stand for it.
When this facility was built, it was one of 3 in the Trans-City deal. So if they can downsize, if they go ahead with downsizing this one, the other 2 facilities are, if I understand correctly, the same sort of facility, so they would be clearing the way really to do the same thing with those 2 buildings as well.
Well, it would seem that way, right?
Okay, is there anything that either of you would like to add?
The only thing, as I said, I'd like to stress is that we definitely need someone on that hospital board from this area. So I'd like for anyone who's got an interest to let us know, so that we can get that process started in order to have someone appointed to that board, so that we will at least have a voice on the board.
And we'd also like to urge the public to support us in our fight to prevent the hospital from closing, in the fact of the services we'll lose if the hospital is closed, but most importantly for the 16 residents living there that's going to lose their home if this place closes.
Okay.
Well, basically the same. We have 16 chronic care patients there that could end up anywhere on the island. So for their sake, I think we have to band together and try to come up with some solution.
Okay, well, I think the hospital has been raised the last couple of days on open line shows. So I guess we can encourage residents, not only of Burgeo, but of Ramya and other communities, to keep this issue on these open line shows and let the public know exactly what is going on.
Sure. Get on the open line. Write to your MHA. Matter of fact, write to all of the people in government if you want to do it that way. Just don't sit back and let things slide. Personally, I've been on the open line. I've been talking to the Gulf News. They're supposed to be doing a story next week. I've been talking to the Georgian, who's also working on it. So we have to keep it at least in the public eye, you know, and let people know what's happening, because as I said, it's not just us. It's going, you know, it's going to spread if it's allowed to happen.
Okay, and CBC will be having a story on it tomorrow night too.
Yes, they're supposed to have a story on tomorrow night regarding the hospital. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank you all for coming and speaking to us, and we'd invite you to keep us informed as to what's going on. And if there's any way that our system can help you, please let us know and we'll try our best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with me in the studio today I have Karen Buckland, who is president of the NAPE local union for our area, Daphne Cooper, local president of the Nurses Union, and Town Mayor Blaine Marks. A number of seals have been making their presence known around town this past week. We managed to get some coverage of a few of the seals. We would like to thank everyone who called our office to inform us of seal sightings. We were unable to film them all, but we appreciate your calls. Stay tuned, there's more of This Week in Review still to come.
The little things you do that you think are small and few are the things that mean the most to me. So just keep giving whatever you're giving, 'cause even when you're giving just a little,
if you're doing just a little, you're helping a lot.
it helps a lot.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
It helps a lot.
The Burgeo volunteer firefighters were called to the scene of a chimney fire on Thursday afternoon. I spoke with Ann Parsons and Carol Barnes concerning a research project they're carrying out here in Burgeo. Speaking with me in the studio today, I have Ann Parsons and Carol Barnes. Welcome to our studio.
Thanks, Dave.
I understand that you've been hired by a grant through West Viking College to do some research here in Burgeo. What sort of research are you compiling?
Yeah, for starters, it is a project that the Community Advisory Committee felt that there was a need to have some research done on Burgeo because there hasn't been any information gathered, like except for Stats Canada, number of people and whatever, for years. So they applied, put in a proposal for this project, and it went through West Viking College, and they in turn then put the ad in the paper, and I think it was aired on BBS, and anyways, they had like some 60-odd applicants from around the province who applied for, and yes, Carol and I were the successful ones to get that. And basically what it is, Dave, is we got a little Burgeo Needs Assessment Survey, we have it called, and so it's the front page kind of says we are conducting a needs assessment survey for the Community Advisory Committee of Burgeo. The reason is to gather information on the education and training needs, your views on economic development, and the need for support service in our area. So with that goes, for starters, it got nothing to do with tags. It's got nothing to do with training or education as such. We're just basically what we want to do, we want to find out what the needs of the people of Burgeo are. You know, maybe there's the specific courses that they might want to see. Maybe there's counselling services that they might want to use. Maybe there's different kind of business that they might want to get into. So what we're going to be doing is going door to door. We've been a couple of weeks now trying to get this questionnaire together, putting it all together and have it approved by the CIC, which is the Community Advisory Committee. And the final draft will be approved by West Viking College because they are our supervisors. That's who we have to answer to. And so when that's done, then we'll go door to door with this questionnaire. It's a number of pages, but I mean none of the questions are too confusing. And basically what we'd like to do is knock on everybody's door, and every individual over the age of 15 we'd like to fill out a questionnaire or a survey. And through that we'll be able to compile a whole lot of information.
Okay, who would have access to this information?
Well, for starters, like on our front sheet, we got if the respondent is less than 15 years of age, well then we don't interview those, but we got an ID number and their name and their telephone number. Now, for our purposes only, well, we have an ID number, right, so that we'll know who got form number 001 or who got form number, you know, whatever. So that'll be just myself and Carol's for our, you know, assessment needs and stuff, for our working tool, I guess we should say. So, and they can put their name there if they want to, but it's not necessary, you know, they don't have to. And if they do, their names are confidential regardless. For whatever any information's on this paper, the names are confidential. And there's no personal questions there. There's, you know, I don't think there's anything on there about the income of the family or anything like that, right, you know. So there's there's only just a general survey, basically. And when that's done, that can be used by, well, for starters, when we're finished with it, we're doing it for the CIC and the West Viking College. So once we're finished, it'll be compiled in a binder or whatever. Somebody will help us put it together, you know, through the college and what have you. And it'll all be done on a statistical, what is that word, Brent?
Put in a database.
Yes, on a database so that we'll know the number of people over the age of 15, number of people between 35 and 40, and that's just that little stuff. So it'll be turned over to West Viking College and the CIC, so that becomes property of them at that time. But in the meantime, it becomes public knowledge once somebody wants it. If the schools wants to know how many children are under the age of 5 in 96, or the government officials wants to know what the needs might be for Burgeo, and the health care, for example, might be able to, you know, use it or whatever. So it should be valuable information for anybody who wants to gather any information from it.
Now, each question will be analysed through the database. So each question can be accessed through the database.
Okay. Okay, you mentioned there's no questions on there about a family's income and things like that. What sort of questions are on the questionnaire?
Okay, well, for example, this first one says, how old are you? I mean, and what number are you in your initial family? For example, are you the oldest in your family? Your parents' family, not the one that you've made now with your husband and wife kind of thing. And the number of children under the age of 15, and how long have you lived in Burgeo, and if you're male or female. And what is your present marital status, like single, married, separated, divorced, widowed, or common law union. And questions like, did you leave school to go to work, and where did you go to work when you left school, and what age were you when you left school, and that's that. And then we got the little ones under the children ones. We got a little section under there asking them, do they feel that there is a need for parents to be more aware of career options for their children? And if yes, do you think career fairs should be held in Burgeo and different things like that? And then we got another section on, there's a little section on the economic development. What types of jobs or work experience have you had? And how old were you when you entered the workforce? And would you be interested in starting a small business? And if so, what type of business? And then we get into what do you see as a challenge facing, some of the challenges facing Burgeo, you know? And what do you see that the government should play in the future development of Burgeo and whatever. So I guess basically what it is to find out what people are thinking and how people are feeling about their life in Burgeo as a whole, I guess.
Okay, so a lot of the questions are geared around education and employment.
Education,
and things like that.
employment, yeah, their needs, you know, and again, like there's counselling there too, like, you know, for example, support services. Do you feel that there should be a personal development, self-awareness improvement courses in Burgeo? Do you feel that there is a need for any kind of counselling services in Burgeo? You know, yes. And if you say yes, well, you know, what would you like to see? It could be marriage counselling. It could be just counselling on this whole issue with the tags thing, you know, and the low employment. It could be counselling for people on social services and those things. So it's not just necessarily education. And
now there's a little one on fishery.
Yeah, there's one on
There's
fishery.
a little one there for the senior citizen.
Yeah.
So hopefully we got everyone covered.
Yeah.
Okay, so when do you anticipate to be going door to door with this survey?
Well, we've been working at this now for 4 weeks, Carol, isn't it? 5 weeks now.
It's gone to Stephenville today.
Yes, it's gone into for the approval, and if that's approved, well then we're going to need about a week to get it printed up and delivered. And I'd say we could be starting. It's possible it could be next week, but I'd say it's going to be the next week after. That's what it looks like. So we'll probably be starting maybe in the Missers area, you know. And we're not going to start like 9 o'clock in the morning or anything like that. It's, I would say we're probably going to be starting in the afternoon, you know, and early in the evening, early after supper.
Okay, is there anything that either of you would like to add further to the survey?
No, just the point that it's not pertaining to tags, job creating, any of this particular thing. It's just...
Yeah, it's just a needs assessment.
Needs assessment.
Yeah. And it's something that we feel that we need in Burgeo because we don't have anything. We don't have anything documented. You know, we sit there and you wonder as well, what do people really need? How do people feel about this? How do they feel about the school situation? How do they feel about the development, you know, the regional development associations and things like that. And it's just a way of finding things out. And so, well, we've been ordered to do this in-depth study, I would say. So, therefore, we are to survey each and every individual over 15. And when we come to the door, we'd like to have a bit of time to come in and sit down and do it, you know, because usually there's 2 in a household. Carol will take one and I'll take the other. And if for some reason that they're not home when we call, then we'll just leave it there and we'll come back and pick it up and help the person fill it out.
Survey, you might make note of it, that it was sent out to the Lions Club, Town of Burgeo, the high school, Help Committee, Social Services, and all those people. I don't know if I missed anyone.
No, well, pretty well covers them. Anybody that we thought might be able to
Have some input
to have
into
some
it.
input, you know, because doing up this, I mean, like, it's not mine and Carol's survey. It's so we felt that maybe the town council might like to ask a question. Might be a question there they might like to ask. Maybe there was something that the social services might like surveyed, right? So we did have some input back from those, but even though that we didn't get a lot of questions put in, that they all responded in saying that they were quite satisfied with the questions that was here and stuff, you know. So we'd like to thank them too for their input, and any questions that they wanted implemented, we put them in.
Okay. Well, we'd like to thank you for coming in and telling us a bit about the survey, and we'd invite you to come back now once the surveys are filled out and all the information is compiled, and let us know what exactly you did find out.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Okay, our guests today are Ann Parsons and Carol Burns. Stay tuned, there's more of This Week in Review still to follow.
At Participaction, we're seeing how activity can be a family tradition for the fun of it and more.
Sometimes things can just seem so stressful and out of context, and just taking a walk in the woods brings it all back down to earth for you, like what really is important. I want to instill some of the love of nature that my mother instilled in our family and just carry that through.
Active living from generation to generation, moving your way every day. Participaction.
Off the rack. This week as we scanned our tape racks, we came across a video of salmon fishing at Grandy's River in the summer of 1988. This video was done by Ron James and Mike Pink.
First one? No, keep the strain on it. No, let's go. Oh, good. Oh, my God, buddy. Yeah, go ahead. Here you go, buddy. First one.
Between the steel bobbins, and you'll notice at the top of the picture a curtain of dark.
In the defense of Canada, a role that only they could.
And I'll be here again next Sunday with This Week in Review. Next Sunday, we'll have a further look at the shoplifting problem here in Burgeo. Next week's program will be followed by the bandwagon. Stay tuned now for Gospel Country. This video comes to us courtesy of our friends at Ramia Broadcasting. We hope you enjoy it. For This Week in Review, I'm Dave Cooper. Good night.